Okay, so get this. Terminator, one of the most legendary sci-fi franchises ever, has a survival game in the works, but almost nobody thinks it's actually going to release. I'm talking about Terminator Survivors. It was announced with a flashy teaser, some bold promises, and then radio silence. No gameplay, no updates, barely a whisper from the devs. And if you've been around gaming long enough, you know that's usually a bad sign. So, is this game secretly falling apart? Or is this just the calm before something epic? Stick around because this story runs deeper than you think. Alright, let's back up a bit. What exactly is Terminator Survivors? Well, it's supposed to be an open-world survival game set in the Terminator universe. Imagine roaming a post-apocalyptic world right after Judgment Day, scavenging, surviving, and most importantly, dodging killer machines trying to erase the last human standing. Sounds awesome, right? The game is being developed by Nacon Studio Milan. Now, if that name doesn't ring a bell, it's the same studio that worked on a few racing games and were previously involved with Rims Racing. Not exactly the team you'd expect to tackle a gritty sci-fi survival game. But hey, everyone's got to start somewhere. They dropped the announcement back in February 29th, 2024 with a cinematic teaser. No gameplay, just vibes. But the teaser did get people hyped because, let's face it, the idea of a survival game in the Terminator universe is a no-brainer. Fans have been waiting for a game that really does justice to the tone of the films, especially that bleak, brutal world we see in the flash-forwards. And here's the kicker. They promised the game would be single-player and co-op, set in an open world where you'd have to outsmart Skynet and stay alive in a devastated Earth. On paper, chef's kiss. But after that initial tease, crickets. No major trailers, no playable demos, nothing. And that's when people started getting nervous. Because if a studio is serious about launching a major IP-based game, you'd think they'd keep the momentum going, right? Yet here we are, waiting, wondering, and watching the clock tick. Up next, I'm going to break down why this silence might be a red flag, or if there's still hope. You'll want to hear this. So here's the weird part. After that cinematic reveal trailer dropped during Nacon Connect on February 29th, 2024, you'd expect the hype train to really take off. But instead, it kind of stalled out. For a while, we didn't get any gameplay, no dev blogs, no community streams, just this lingering question of, where is this thing? Then, finally, on June 27th, 2024, we got a behind-the-scenes video titled A Resistance in the Making. In it, the devs at Nacon Studio Milan sat down to talk about their vision for the world of Terminator Survivors. They showed concept art, talked about environmental storytelling, hinted at biome diversity, and described how they're capturing the bleak tone of the post-Judgment Day universe. You could tell they're passionate, and honestly, that was refreshing. But here's the thing, there was still no actual gameplay shown. No UI, no mechanics in action. Nothing to really ground their ideas in something we can see and judge. And considering that was early 2024, the lack of gameplay this far into 2025 is kind of a red flag. When that much time passes without something interesting to show, especially gameplay, people start to lose confidence. We've seen it with plenty of titles, games that sound amazing on paper, but never quite make it to the finish line. To be clear, this doesn't mean the game is doomed. It might just be early. But the lack of consistent communication and visible progress creates a vacuum. And that vacuum gets filled with skepticism fast, especially in a genre as competitive as survival. So, is this just cautious development, or something more worrying? There's one theory that might explain the silence, and it's something we'll dig into right after this. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the curse of Terminator games. Because if you've followed this franchise over the years, you know the track record hasn't exactly been stellar. Sure, we had some solid arcade and PC hits back in the 90s, especially around the T2 hype. But after that, things went downhill fast. Terminator Salvation from 2009. Yeah, not great. The gameplay was bland, the AI felt unfinished, and there was almost no replay value. It came out just days before the movie premiered, and honestly, it felt like it was rushed out the door just to hit that release window. A typical movie tie-in with more marketing pressure than game design polish. Then there was Terminator Genisys Future War, a free-to-play mobile strategy game that most people didn't even realize existed. It was one of those games you install, forget about in 10 minutes, and then delete when your phone's storage fills up. Now, Terminator Resistance in 2019 actually broke the cycle a bit. It wasn't perfect, clunky controls, dated visuals, but man, the fans loved it. Why? because it stayed true to the source material. It captured that gritty, war-torn future and gave players the chance to live out the future war we'd only seen in glimpses on screen. It earned a cult following, especially after the enhanced edition came to next-gen consoles. More recently, we got Terminator, Dark Fate, Defiance in early 2024, a real-time tactics game set in a universe where Skynet never existed and centers on humanity's fight against a new AI called Legion, about a decade after Judgment Day. It had decent mechanics, solid visuals, and was pretty well received in strategy circles, but again, it didn't really break out beyond the hardcore fans. Another niche entry that didn't make a mainstream impact. So yeah, the track record is mixed at best. And that's why people are wary of Terminator Survivors. They want it to be good, but history hasn't been kind. Next up, what if this game actually delivers? Let's talk about that. Alright, let's play the optimist for a second. What if Terminator Survivors actually pulls it off? What if all this radio silence isn't a warning sign, but a result of the devs keeping their heads down and building something meaningful behind the scenes? Because, let's be real, the concept still has massive potential. A gritty post-Judgment Day survival game that practically writes itself. Imagine scavenging through destroyed cities, sneaking through abandoned factories, crafting weapons from old tech, and dodging patrols of killer machines. Whether it's Skynet, Legion, or some other AI, they don't even need to specify. It's the feeling of being hunted that matters most. The fact that it's built for both solo and co-op gameplay could actually give it a serious edge. Picture you and two friends crawling through a collapsed overpass at night, low on ammo, debating whether to risk a loot run past a patrol route. That level of tension and choice, it's survival gaming gold. What makes this even more exciting is the possibility of base building, recruiting fellow survivors, and gradually pushing back against the machines, or at least surviving long enough to see another sunrise. If Nacon nails the atmosphere, pacing, and emergent storytelling, this could be one of those surprise hits nobody saw coming. Sure, the odds might seem stacked. New studio, high expectations, and a competitive genre. But if they pull together strong AI, immersive world design, and tight mechanics, it could flip the Terminator gaming legacy on its head. We're not there yet, but there's just enough potential here to get people believing. And when it comes to Terminator games, believing too hard has let us down before. So, after all of this, where do I stand on Terminator Survivors? Honestly, I'm torn. On one hand, the idea is strong. A survival game set in a post-Judgment Day world where you're just trying to stay alive, that's pure gold if done right. And the fact that it's not just a cheap mobile tie-in or some rushed movie companion gives me a sliver of hope that Nacon is aiming higher than we're used to seeing from Terminator games. But on the other hand, the silence is deafening. It's been over a year since the announcement, and we've seen almost nothing. No dev blogs, no gameplay, no roadmap. In an industry where transparency builds trust, the lack of communication isn't just frustrating, it's worrying. It makes people think something's wrong, even if it's not. And that's where things get tricky, because fans want to believe. They've seen what Terminator Resistance did with a small budget and a lot of heart. They know the universe has untapped potential, but they've also been burned before, repeatedly. So, my final take? I think Terminator Survivors is either going to quietly disappear, or it's going to blow us away. There's probably no in-between here. If it shows up with a solid trailer, gameplay that feels grounded and brutal, and an atmosphere that screams survival horror meets sci-fi, I'm all in. But until then, cautious optimism is the only sane reaction. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Terminator Survivors is the real deal? Or is this just another promising game headed for the scrap heap? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And hey, if you made it this far, you're clearly into this stuff. So hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive.